All right, so welcome back in those just joining. I accidentally tried to give you 25 minutes, so thank you for popping back on a little earlier than I had said. You will get a full 30-minute break or close to it for the afternoon session so that you can prepare. Actually, while the last few folks are getting on, for this afternoon, our evening practice will be a self-abhyanga, which is just it's oil massage, an Ayurvedic oil massage. So be prepared for the evening practice with a towel or sarong, unless you want to get your yoga mat all lathered up with your oil for some reason. You know, if you like the slip and slide effect, then for sure go for it. Otherwise, grab a towel or sarong or something you can put down on your little practicing nesting space and have your nice oil ready with you so that will be our 4:30, around 4:30 or 5. Actually, probably go into it more like about 5 or so. So we'll do a nice abhyanga together for your dosha and for your gunas. Okay, so have your notebooks, your journals out. We are going to open up the screen share. Let me just make sure my recording's on. Yeah, okay. To go into, this will be very quick. All right, everyone can see it. Screen is up. Yeah, okay. Let me just minimize this so I can see everything. Okay, so the elements we looked at a little bit yesterday from the lens of like, what are the qualities of each of the elements? So here I just wanted to present them. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go back a slide. These are referred to as the Pancha Mahabhutas, or the 5 great elements. And I just wanted to give that term because for those who have gone over Samkhya philosophy, you will see these listed in there as, you know, 5 of the 26 elements of the framework of that philosophy. So the Pancha Mahabhutas, the 5 great elements. And this is what they are. And remember that it is different than traditional Chinese medicine. So for those who have studied or currently study yin, you will see some differences. You don't see metal in there. You don't see wood in there. In Ayurvedic medicine, things like metal and wood are considered to be part of earth. So it's broken down a little bit differently. So we have ether or akash. The Sanskrit, really, you can pick it up and run with it if it's something you're interested in. Otherwise, you know, you're at least hearing it, so it might be familiar, but don't stress about getting it down. Air or Vayu, certainly anyone who has worked with and studied yoga may find that term familiar because we have the 5 Vayus that we have studied, and really the 5 Vayus are sub-doshas of, can anyone guess which dosha the 5 Vayus are sub-doshas of? You can throw it in the chat. Yeah, Vata. So each of the principal doshas also has sub-doshas, and the 5 Vayus are the sub-doshas of Vata. So the 5 different winds of the body. Prana is one of those, and Apana might be another one that you've heard of, is also a Vayu. So we have air, Vayu. Fire is Agni. Agni, that's the short A, so it's pronounced like a sound rather than Agni, Agni. Water, which is Jal or Jala, sometimes you'll see it as Jala. And earth, which is Prithvi, Prithvi. So these are the 5 elements in Ayurvedic perspective or Ayurvedic medicine. So now we're going to take these and layer on. That was really short and sweet, just 2 slides. because we're going to layer on now the actual doshas themselves. This is where it's going to all kind of hopefully come together. Okay, so let me see here. All right. Oh, my screen sharing is paused. Okay, I'm just going to stop the share and get back into it because it's saying it's paused for some reason. And I'm not sure why. So let me get back in. Okay, can everyone see that now? Yeah, okay, sorry about that little blip. I'm not sure why it paused. I think I had like too many things open. It's very Vata of me. Okay, so the doshas. These are the 3 elemental constitutions, as I've mentioned, or the humors. Just looking for my book so I can give you a little bit more expansive information on some of these. Okay. And we covered this yesterday, but I just want to show you a visual of the breakdown of the elements from the slides you just saw of the 5 elements of how they break down to form the doshas themselves. So Vata, again, is made of ether and air. Pitta of fire and water. And Kapha of water and earth. So as we move through the doshas, they kind of become more manifest. They become a little bit heavier as we move from Vata and onward to Kapha. And just as a reminder that your body and your mind can absolutely have different constitutions. And then we also have, I think this was a question from Ria as well. Again, we also have the Mahagunas that we covered yesterday working their magic over the doshas. So for example, you can have, like a really tough one, for example, would be like a Rajasic. Remember, Rajas is like kinetic energy. It's action, it's movement, it's mobility. So you could have like a really Rajasic Vata or a really Rajasic Pitta, which would be, probably challenging. They're going to be like even more mobile than typical. And it might not necessarily be a bad thing if you had a tendency to be Kapha, but you were also like by nature a little bit Rajasic. You would probably have a little bit of an easier time to get up and go versus a more tamasic Kapha. So someone who mentally was also very slow and dull. And then so Ria asked, so is like a Sattvic Kapha kind of like the maximum, like most highly evolved being? Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know. They're all so beautiful, and their offerings, as we'll get into a little bit here, like they all have such beautiful things to offer. But I can tell you one thing: if you find a Sattvic Kapha, hold on to that person as your best friend or your partner. Grab them fast, because that's definitely like a very beautiful composition if you have a very Sattvic Kapha. Okay, so this is the breakdown of the elements. What I want to do is go through each dosha. And again, so this is going to be a little bit of a review of the gunas for each dosha as well. And we're going to cover how that guna can show up for this constitution. So for a Vata, again, made of ether and air, the guna of dry can show up as dry skin, dry hair, dry nails, lips, dryness like loneliness, isolation, fear, a hoarse voice. Vatas also have dry digestion. So they're probably the only constitution that is going to somewhat regularly struggle potentially with having regular bowel movements. It's really like a thing for Vatas. You know, they're like envious of everybody else's nice regular movement and metabolism because Vatas are just dry internally and externally. Light guna, they might tend to have a lower body weight or like a lighter, smaller frame. Anxiety, small or frail body frame, particularly if there's like an imbalance, they can get really like, they may be the people who struggle to stay at a healthy weight. The sleep is going to be light. They're not the best, super deep nurturing sleepers. Cold, that could manifest as cold hands and feet for sure. Poor circulation. You'll recognize the Vatas in a room because they're the ones always putting on an extra layer well before anyone else does. Stiffness in their muscles. It takes them a while to warm up their joints. Again, because of that dryness, their joints will be dry, maybe popping and cracking, and equally their muscles need a little bit to warm up. Indifference or ambivalence. Rough skin, cracking joints, as I mentioned, a cynical mood. They can come across, particularly, again, I know some of these you might be like, oh my gosh, none of these sound like positive attributes. But remember, we're talking about when there's really like imbalance. And these are sort of like the tendencies of a Vata. So rough skin, cracking joints, cynical mood, subtle. Remember, that's the light, the like looming, you can sense it, but it's not so manifest. It's not so solid like in Kapha. Fear, anxiety, insecurity, subtle emotions. Like they may not have like super high highs and super low lows. Tremors, addictions. Mobile, these are going to be your fast walking friends. They're like, whoops, I accidentally left you in the dust. I got distracted and was talking and didn't even realize you weren't there. This is like a Vata. Fast walking, fast talking, restless, insecurity. Clear, again, the clear guna, isolation, creativity. They can get very clear and have like a brilliance or a luminous nature as far as their creative ideas. They understand quickly, like they can grasp new ideas, new material, new concepts very quickly, but they're also going to forget it equally as fast. So, the Vatas in this retreat, maybe next month, are going to be like, what were the elements of Vata again? What were the elements of Pitta? Whereas like the Kapha might have to study the material for a little while, but then Kaphas are going to have it in there for life. And Pittas are just quick. They're sharp. They're intelligent. They're going to pick it up and it's probably going to stick with them as long as it's relevant information. So these are some of the characteristics as far as being broken down by the gunas, which I really want you to look at. So when a Vata is really out of whack or out of balance, they can experience things like bloating, constipation. I mentioned this already. All the kind of like less ideal things on the list: the dry skin, the dry hair, the cold, the anxiety. They can be spacey. So Vata management, the principal thing is going to be, of course, as we've been exploring, balancing these gunas. So in general, for Vata, you want to seek warm, moist. They need to bring some humidity and moisture to that dry environment. Oily, like ghee. Ghee is a Vata's best friend. Like you could like eat the ghee, put it on your food. You can massage yourself with ghee. Quiet time is going to be really important for Vatas to be able to hone into that beautiful attribute of creativity. The Vatas are like the idea generators. Like Vatas have, they're like the dreamers and the artists. And then the Pittas are usually the ones who like come in and get it get it done. Like they might take a Vata idea and like really turn it into something manifest. Gentle things that are gentle and soft and loving, like gentle yoga, restorative yoga is wonderful. Things where you can like cover yourself in a blanket and get yourself really cozy. Massages are amazing. Things where there's touch. The organ of the skin is really associated with Vata because of its connection to the air element. Like we feel our skin through really our contact with the air. Staying home, not taking on too many things, staying warm. What else did I want to let you know? Yeah. And so again, this is like the king of the doshas as far as, you know, it's the one that's responsible for the trouble. Vata is kind of the troublemaker. So when you notice or you sense an imbalance, it's a really good place to start, because remember, we all have all three. They're usually great communicators. Yeah, and so Vatas are like they're fun, they're mobile, they're active, they're like game for anything. They're ready to like get up and go. They can be spontaneous without it like wreaking havoc on their life, and they're creators. So they have these really beautiful attributes. And then these are all the ways that the gunas can manifest, particularly when they're not balanced. So this is Vata. Okay. And is again, we're going to do the same format we did yesterday. So as questions arise, you can either type them in the chat or just note it down, like write it in your notebook, because we'll have some open space for questions at the end of all the material. Okay. So characteristics of Pitta. We're going to go down through the gunas, and then we're going to take a look at some of the general characteristics. So hot can manifest in Pitta as their passion. They're super passionate people, which is one of the really lovely things about Pitta. But if out of balance, it can translate into anger. They are going to tend to have a higher body temperature. They have really good Agni. Agni is the element of fire. You know, that's their predominant element. So they have a good metabolism. These are the friends that the Vata folks are like envious of their Pitta friends that are like able to go to the bathroom like 4 times a day. And they're just like, how is that even possible? You know, I just went 4 days without going to the bathroom. So Pitta's got no issues. They have a lot of fire in there, like cooking. They can eat, and it's going to move through. Sharp, the guna of sharp memory, sharp intellect. Sharpness can come across as being like irritable, or like they can be like snappy with people. But also the sharpness is going to help them with their concentration. This is why they can really focus on a task. Their main thing is learning when to take it down or to back off, because they can get hyper focused. Light, the guna of light, their eyes have a tendency to be bright and big. They might have a lighter body frame or like an athletic build. Alertness is just kind of in their nature. They're going to kind of always be well aware of their surroundings. They're intelligent, they're sharp. So they're always kind of like observing and taking in what's happening around them. Oily, they are going to be the ones that have a tendency to have a little bit oily skin, the oily feces or bowel movement. So this is the downside with that good metabolism, is that it might not be like good, healthy bowel movements. They might have a tendency to have really soft and oily movements. Vigor, they can really go for it. And at a pretty moderate pace. So whereas Vatas can go fast, but they burn out, and Kaphas might be a little bit slow, but they have stamina. Pitta's kind of somewhere in the middle. Like they can hang, they can kind of do the hard work, and they're going to sweat and probably be stinky, but they can hang, like they're in it. They don't burn out fast. Liquid, excess urine, excess sweat. Yeah, these are going to be your really sweaty yoga students are going to be the Pitta. They got a lot of fire going on, and liquid, loose stools. Spreading or mobile, this can manifest anything that's inflammation is going to be a pitta imbalance. So that might come up as rashes, acne, inflammation. But as far as like social or characteristics that they might, attributes that they might have, this is going to come as their leadership qualities. Like they are going to have influence, because what they're out there in the world doing will also have that spreading quality. Potential downside is that they could be like fame seeking or growth seeking. And because of that, a tendency toward perfectionism or competition, it might be like all consuming. It might be like at the detriment to their health. So pitta has beautiful metabolism, a nice temperature to kind of boil and digest the food. They are go-getters. You see pittas a lot as entrepreneurs. As I had mentioned, if Vata is like the generator of the creative ideas, Pitta is the one who's like, okay, let's go. Let's get your trademark. Let's start your company. Let's file these papers. Let's find the space. They're like, let's make the task list and let's get it done. Whereas Vata might just stay in dreamland for a couple years with their idea. So, what else do I want to tell you about Vata, about Pitta rather? Yeah, they like challenge. They operate well in challenge. They operate well, and in some cases they operate best when there's a little bit of challenge or a little bit of competition. That's why their constant challenge is going to be to back off. To manage Pitta needs, as with all the doshas, the opposites of these qualities. So Pitta needs food that is cooling. Things like cucumbers, watermelon, herbs and spices that are cooling, like mint, fennel. Coconut is a really good one. So for any pittas out there, like coconut oil would be a good option for your abhyanga today. They need unstructured time. They fill in their agenda, their daily and weekly agenda, like it's too much. There's too much going on. So they need time to be unproductive. Pittas need time to lay in a hammock and not do. All the holics are gonna probably more likely be pittas. We're gonna have workaholism, alcoholism, like nothing is halfway. It's like too much all the time. So they need space to do nothing and to not be productive. Time in nature is very good for pitta. Also play, time to be silly, because they have that sharp quality. So pittas can be, it can be hard for pittas to let loose, like to laugh and to dance and to let things be sloppy and not perfect and undone. Relaxation. Yeah. Time away. So pitta is all about backing, they need to back off and back up. And that's very, very challenging for pitta. Okay. So characteristics of kapha. So kapha is made of water and earth. They have, the gunas are listed in bold here, and we're going to just talk about, again, how each guna can manifest. In their system. So heavy kapha folks may tend to have a larger frame. Like some folks, their bones are actually like bigger or just heavier. Like kapha folks might be less likely, for example, to break a bone versus a vata person who might have a smaller frame or like more air in their bones. So large, sturdy body frame, lethargy, a tendency to be overweight, particularly when there's an imbalance, and also it can simply be their healthy body natural structure. Slow walking, slow talking, slow digestion. They're going to be very patient. Kaphas are going to be the great listeners because they're less likely to already be into like the next part of the conversation in their mind because things are just moving slower. Cool. They will also be cool or cold like Vata, but unlike Vata, they're not cold and dry. They're going to be cold and like clammy because they are also unctuous, which is the next one. They're really oily. So cold and clammy, they're going to have a tendency to get colds, particularly like I had mentioned, like wet, phlegmy, like those kind of sloppy stuff coming up, congestion type of colds. Cough, congestion, stagnation. They're oily, so they have really beautiful, well-lubricated skin, well-lubricated joints, well-lubricated digestion. Everything's like pretty steady and regular. They're able to like ease into relaxation, slide right into that, no problem for them. Smooth skin, calm nature. They're pretty flexible as long as they don't have to like do anything too quickly. And also physical flexibility is usually pretty good with Kapha because they are like just well lubed up. Like they're just oily. Their joints are oily. Their fascia is nice and oily and hydrated. So they're usually also physically pretty flexible. Dense. Kapha folks tend to have a little thicker skin versus like the papery, drier skin of maybe Vata or someone with a Vata imbalance. Nice thick nails and hair, very thick fat layer. So that this is also, part of the oiliness that they have, and strength. Kaphas are the workhorses. So like mental strength and physical strength. They're often the friend that like a lot of people lean on. Like they have broad shoulders, which is a beautiful attribute. And it's also, that's like a challenge of Kapha too, because they're like always getting leaned on all the time. Soft, they tend to be quite compassionate and tender. Static or like still, stable. They're going to be more attracted to a sedentary lifestyle. As I've mentioned a lot, the Kaphas are a little bit trickier to get them up and moving. They're not the number one fan of change. Whereas like if a Vata gets too deep into a routine, they may actually start to feel like they have to have some kind of a change or they're going to go crazy. Kaphas is going to be the other way around. It's like I'm in my routine and I actually don't particularly want to move to a different state or country and get a new job. It's going to take them a long time to kind of rev up and go with those big life changes. Support, stability. Yeah, they have all these beautiful attributes. Like in their physical form, they're pretty stable and solid, and also as attributes or characteristics in their relationships. Cloudy, they can be foggy minded and a little bit slow in the morning. And again, that attachment can show up a lot for Kapha because they have that sticky quality. So they can get attached to people, to places, to positions, to work, to relationships, to a particular house or apartment. So they can get into tendencies of attachment because of that stickiness. And foggy minded. So Kapha people are more likely to, they may need to watch these slides of the last couple days like 3 times because it might be a little bit jumbled in their mind. But this is one of the things that's really nice with Kaphas because of that sticky quality. It's like once it lands, it really is going, like they will have it for life and they will not forget. So watch out if you ever wrong a Kapha because they will also never forget. Never. So Kapha, in order to have balance or Kapha management, I'm sorry, keyboard's making a sound. In order to balance the gunas of Kapha, Kapha needs to favor warm, dry, light. So as far as food goes, that might be things like soups and teas. As I mentioned yesterday, kappas can really go for it with the spices. Yeah, they can really get experimental with that. It's pitta that has to be a little bit mindful. Well, vata to a certain extent too, but pitta really needs to like take the spice down. Kapha can really go for it. Spice it up. They can have astringent food, look more towards like fruits and vegetables as opposed to like heavier, more dense or more starchy types of foods. Exercise to get up and get going. And some of you mentioned yesterday, I think we were talking about balancing for kapha, like something like a sauna is excellent if they have that, because it's warming, but it's also drying, versus like a steam shower. Trying new things is going to be really great for a kapha, getting them into a routine or a pattern of getting out of their comfort zone. So for example, a really great practice for kapha could be like every Saturday, I have a goal of like, I'd try something I've never tried before, whether it's a food or an activity. And so that way there's structure. It's like it happens every single week, but also it's like getting them out of their box of comfort. That would be like an excellent exercise. Spontaneity. They are the strongest of the doshas. They are the steadiest. And according to the ancient texts of Ayurveda and of yoga, they're really like the most advantageous, you know, they're just a lovely dosha. And it's not that we all want to strive to be kapha, because remember, you have your natural constitution. So in order to be in balance, what your current balance is, you need to work with that to have it match up with what your natural state is. Because if you are naturally a pitta and you're trying to be a kapha, you will always be out of balance, because your prakriti is going to go, yeah, but that's not what I am. I'm a pitta. I need some fire. So let's see here. Okay. And then just to reiterate our kind of shloka, or our kind of slogan from yesterday, like increases like and opposites balance. So for all of these gunas, we want to go for the opposite quality in order to create balance when it's out of whack. And I emphasize that because, for example, for kapha, just because I happen to have this slide up at the moment, smooth is not bad. Smooth is not bad. But if, for example, someone's calm nature, because they're so smooth, is like they have an inability, it's like their nervous system is asleep, and they have an inability to like get excited or to experience joy because they're just so smooth all the time. In that case, you might want to balance that out a little bit with something that brings in a little bit more of a roughness. And so for kaphas, for example, dry brushing is really good. It's not that they have to start being rough in their personality, but you could start to bring in like diet stuff that's a little more rough, like leafy greens are excellent, or the dry brushing to wake that up a little bit. It's not that being slow is bad or negative, but if the person is in such a slow state that they're actually like stagnant, or their digestion has like stopped completely, because they're pretty regular, but they're not going to be like a pitta going to the bathroom 5 times a day, but they're going to be pretty steady and regular. But if they get so slow that stops, or they really can't get up and get going, or they get really slowed down by a tamasic moment, like a depression or something like that, then you want to bring in some of that fast, that quick, that mobile quality. So hopefully that's all starting to land and make sense by now. All right, so I think before we go to the daily and the annual routines or cycles, I think I'd like to check in on questions. Let's see. Kaffas love the hammock. Oh yeah. And the pittas are the ones that need to be in the hammock, but they're going to be too busy. They're going to be like, I got a tour scheduled. I got 4 tours scheduled today. We got to go. No time for the hammock, Cece. Come on. Can different mind and body doshas be part of one's prakriti, or is the difference indicative of vikriti? Okay, yeah, good question. So the question is, can your prakriti naturally be one dosha in the mind and a different dosha as far as your physical attribute? So again, I don't want to get too much into Ayurvedic psychology, and I see you, my counselors out there, you're all interested in this stuff. And I am too, and I love it, but I just can't do it justice because we don't have much time. So generally, I didn't talk about how the Maha gunas relate or correlate with the doshas, but generally, when you're talking about mental space, if you're thinking of, if you're speaking about an imbalance, it's going to probably be yeah, there's kind of a vata imbalance there, or kind of a kapha imbalance in the mind. But generally, when we're talking about the mind, if someone's vata as their prakriti, as their natural state, they're vata. And ideally, we would like for ourselves to feel like the best balanced and the most harmonious experience to have our mental state be sattvic. So the mind terms are really those mahagunas, which it's either sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. What I didn't go over yesterday, and that's why I said it's, the psychology is like a whole other thing, is that each of the mahagunas is tied to a dosha. So, I mean, mentally, I think regardless of your composition, if you go toward sattvic, it will always be balancing, because one of the qualities of sattva is that it is balance, it is purity, it is peace. So when confronted with a choice, if you choose the sattvic, you can never go wrong, regardless of your dosha. Does that make sense? And generally, if you're in a mental space that's very rajasic or very tamasic, it would insinuate an imbalance. I know I keep saying I'm not going to go into the psychology, but then it just, that's just what happens. Good question. All right. Does anyone else have a question as far as the doshas or the elements before I layer on the daily and the annual routines?
Looks like Sarah has a question.
Yes. Oh, hey. Oh, hello. Yes, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Hi. Thank you for thank you for presenting all this. I've heard it before, and it's just such a great reminder of to just constantly be refreshing the information. And I unfortunately missed yesterday evening's session, so I missed the first time you said that body and mind can have 2 different dosha profiles, which I've never heard that before. It's blown my own mind. And so my question comes out of that, which is, it's clear to me now that my mind is very vata, which I knew, but that my body is pitta. And so in terms of balancing or nourishing them, because they need different things. What's your approach or suggestion on approach of nourishing both of them when they both have different needs?
Yeah. Whew. Y'all are like giving it to me with your questions and comments. I love it though. It's so rich. Yeah, I mean, this is why it's hard. This is why it's difficult. But I guess I would revert to, again, what we were just speaking about when it comes to the mind. With the mind, you just always want to move in the direction of sattva. Like move towards sattva, which is one of the mahagunas. because also it doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense. Like, for example, so if you are identifying as someone who's predominantly pitta, or that's your primary dosha, you know, let's take the guna of ushna, for example, of hot. You know, how do you make your mind cold? Like, how do you offer cold to your mind? I'm not really sure. Which is why it gets tricky, because it's the 20 gunas are really like, they can manifest as attributes in your mental sphere, but that's why we really use the mahagunas when we're talking about the mind. It's more like sattva, rajas, tamas. So when you feel you're very mentally out of balance, go in the direction of sattva. And actually, even when you feel like you're in balance, you will never create harm in your system if you go in the direction of sattva. And I'm just going to preemptively kind of cover a question that comes up usually when we talk about this, is like, yeah, but can you be like too sattvic? And the answer is like yes and no. If you get super, super obsessed with being sattvic, and you go into like spiritual snobbery, and you cannot even be around anyone or in the same space as anyone who is not vegan and does not meditate, and you get very like judgmental about other lifestyles. We see this in very like secular spiritual paths, that they can almost be like cult like. So what I would say to that is that those practices cease to become sattvic when they no longer bring balance, because sattvic nature is balance and it is pure. So when it gets to a point where it becomes competitive or judgmental or detrimental, I have to meditate for 6 hours a day, or I'm not sattvic enough, that is like actually has become rajasic. It's actually like no longer sattvic, it's rajasic. Or could even be tamasic, where it could actually become very damaging. And sometimes in like very extreme cases, I mean, I only use the example of a cult because normally things like that are started with quite pure intentions. It's like people with shared belief systems, and then it can get so, like so obsessed with this particular path that is deemed as pure or righteous, that it can actually sometimes become downright tamasic, where we see things like suicide pacts, or people have to get cut off from the rest of their family, or they can't be part of the spiritual path. So that's actually really extreme and tamasic. That's not sattvic. Does that make sense? So yeah, when we're talking about the mind, we're really going to look at the maha gunas. And so sattva, I guess I'll just give you this because you all have a lot of questions about the mind, which is fine. Sattva in general is associated with vata. So vata has a relationship with sattva in the mind. You can interpret that how you will. It doesn't necessarily mean that a vata person that it's going to be easier for a vata person to be sattvic, but it might mean that some of their tendencies naturally lean in that direction, or maybe it's not such a fight for them. Pitta is aligned with rajas in the mind, and kapha is aligned with tamas, this is why I wasn't going to layer it on, because I feel like now people might be like, but wait a minute, kapha is like the best one, it's so beautiful, and then they're aligned with tamas, which is like darkness. But remember, tamas is also inertia and torpor and slow and sloth, and that's kapha with the earth and the water. So yes, your constitutions of body and mind do not necessarily match, but all doshas always want to go in the direction of sattva when it comes to the mind. So
can I re-clarify my question then, maybe?
Yes.
So
Yes.
thank you for everything you just shared. I guess I was actually coming from more of a practical angle. For example, like if I know my body is pitta and I need to pacify the pitta with cooling foods, but vata is activated by cooling foods, for example, how do I not throw off my vata mind in order to pacify my pitta body is I think more what I was asking. Like if I eat a bunch of cucumbers and then it throws my mind off, but I need it for my body, like is there I guess maybe your answer might be the same going towards sattvic, but in terms of my body, I guess that's more of my question. Like, how do I keep them both in balance, knocking one out? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And for sure. And our diet can impact our mind. So I know a lot of people, for example, that do gluten-free. It's not necessarily because of celiacs. A lot of people do gluten-free because of brain fog. So, so could I ask you, what are you referring to as vata in the mind? When you say you have a vata mind, what are you referring to?
Definitely unsettled, definitely unsettled speed of thought, the amount of creativity, the expansive, I'm such a daydreamer. I could live in my daydream space all day long. That kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. So when we bring it to the Mahagunas, because that's the language we want to use with the mind, even though they're associated with the doshas, right? So what I'm hearing you say is it's like a kinetic energy place. So it's like it's movement, it's active. So that is rajasic. That is like, you know, in a mental space, it's a rajasic. And then the body very pitta. So for example, if you eat a bowl of cold cucumbers, don't put vinegar on them if you're very pitta. You know, maybe you have cucumbers with some fennel or something that's cooling. That is going to be a sattvic choice for you. If you throw into the mix that you eat those cucumbers while relaxing in a hammock and not on a phone call or scrolling your phone or watching anything or listening anything, if you eat your cucumbers with fennel in silence while sitting in a hammock, then you have an excellent prescription for settling pitta and creating a sattvic situation for your mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. Thank you for putting all those layers together. And it just made me go like, oh, wow, this is complicated. I have more to learn here. Thank you. I didn't realize my question was as complicated as maybe it truly is, but thank you for that.
Yeah, it doesn't, the study never stops. And Sarah, because it's so lovely because I know most of you, you know, separately and through trainings and retreats and in my personal life as friends, and that you've been here. So I happen to know that Sarah enjoys this avenue of study, what is the human mind. So I would definitely recommend for you looking into Ayurvedic psychology stuff with Dr. Svoboda or Dr. Scott Blossom, because it is incredible. It is like a whole other, you know, it will open up a whole new world. And it's super, super interesting stuff. And I'm excited that so many of you are interested in the mental aspect of it. This is really cool and unexpected. So Chloe is asking, can you give some examples of going sattva with the mental state? So sattva are things like silence, you know, all of the qualities of the mahaguna of sattva: purity, balance, peace, silence. For example, a sattvic movie might be something that's like, if you're going to watch a movie, because that's kind of like a little bit of a rajasic activity, but at least if you're going to do it, watching something like a documentary on like how to get involved in humanitarian aid efforts would be something sattvic, versus watching you know, like Game of Thrones or something, which is like rajasic, tamasic, like a lot of death, a lot of violence, a lot of action. Meditation is sattvic. self-care, listening into the gunas that you need, and then actually giving yourself what your body needs versus what your mind is telling you to go do as a routine is sattvic. Prayer is sattvic. Meditation, mantra. Gardener's World on BBC is sattvic. I don't even know what that show is, but it sounds quite sattvic. Yeah, I bet Chloe would like that one. Let's see. Does that answer your question, Chloe? I don't know if she's muted or I can't hear you. I didn't hear you, Chloe, but can you do a like thumbs up, thumbs down to that answer? Okay, perfect. Let's see, Seychelle. How do the doshas handle anger, resentments, uncomfortable conversations? For some are more easy to let go, need space, time. Yeah, wow. Good one. Anger is going to be probably the biggest challenge when we're talking about the emotion of anger, which is a natural emotion and it happens, is going to be with pitta. Pitta is going to be challenged by anger because they have the fire. So they may internalize a lot of anger. They may have a tendency to get angry toward themselves. They also have the sharpness. So they might lash out toward people and then, have mixed emotions about how they feel about that. If they have too much air, they might even be explosive. And then because of the fire, they might kind of sit and burn, the anger might just like burn within them. The kaphas are sticky, so they never forget, but they're also very patient and they're very compassionate. So kaphas, it's gonna like probably take them a lot, I hate to say this, but it's like they're going to be the friends that like put up with way too much. They're going to be the friends or the partners that just like, they just let it go too far. They're going to let people overstep their bounds again and again and again. And then when they get angry, they might be a little bit steadier and collected as far as their way to, they feel deep, they have that water element, but they might have a steadiness in how they respond to that. And they will never forget, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they will never forgive. But forgiven may not mean forgotten with a kapha. Vata, because vatas can be a little erratic and unpredictable, Vata might like get angry like quickly or accidentally or kind of seemingly out of nowhere. But the good thing with Vata is that they're probably going to forget tomorrow what they were even angry about. So it's going to be like, I'm angry. And then what were we fighting about? Or what was I upset about? Or what was I irritated about? Unless of course there's an imbalance when, again, because of that air element and the movement, it could be really like explosive. So let's see. So doshas and resentments. Yeah. And so as far as handling conversations and absolutely. The different doshas and the makeups it's going to be different for them in the way that they handle uncomfortable situations. Vatas are kind of comfortable being uncomfortable because they like change. They like to switch it up. They kind of like to be on their toes. Pitta's, their challenge as far as conversation is going to be to maintain, to tap into those water qualities that they have, so that they don't have conversations immediately following anger that are sharp and hurtful. Because, you can't take back words once they're said. And this is kind of like one of the ongoing challenges of pitta is like, whoops, the fire got the best of me. And then I like really let this person have it. And now I feel bad because I just, they might be like hot-headed. They might tend to be hot-headed. So I'd say with like a pitta person, a key is going to be patience. Like you don't have to force a conversation until you're ready to have it. With kappas, they're going to take their time anyway. They're not like quick or fast or explosive. So they're going to kind of take their time. And vatas, yeah, they're going to probably forget. They're going to forget about it. So vatas are probably going to be pretty comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. So that's nice. Like they're pretty approachable because they're like, oh, what? You want to have a really uncomfortable, tough conversation right now? Sure, let's go. Sounds fun. Let's do it. Pittas might have difficulty not yelling as well. They get that explosiveness out of their mouth and out of their words. Inflammation, hemorrhoids. Yeah. So any form of inflammation is pitta. So for physical things like this, I just want to say, because I don't want to go out beyond the realm of like my scope of practice. I will just say that inflammation is a pitta imbalance. And this is actually exactly something that an Ayurvedic practitioner is excellent for. But what inflammation, yes, is pitta, and also specifically in the case of an inflammation like a hemorrhoid, oftentimes is due to force, like there's not enough lubrication. So what that would say to me is that it's like a drying, which is why I say anytime something's wacky, like go first to the vata, go first to the air, because that's what's causing movement and it's what's drying things out. And the first thing to get a fire all crazy is when a big gust of wind comes. Like you have a little tiny, like cute little campfire, and then a gust of wind comes, and then it's like, explosive. So if there's too much air, that's going to be drying, and it's also going to create like a lack of control with the fire. So it's going to mess up the way that everything's moving through the system. It's not going to be as oily. It's going to be more dried out. Which is going to create more of a tendency toward an inflammation like a hemorrhoid. And then also, and then the inflammation itself is like too much fire. So yeah, go for the balance in gunas, in diet, in practices, all that jazz. That's why the gunas and the elements are just so important, because now if you can start to identify something within yourself and just feel into which elements or which gunas, you can really just play with your own prescriptions through diet. Are the doshas connected to the zodiac? Oh, we cannot go into that right now because I really have to get to something else. I will say yes. And Vedic astrology, or like seeing a Jyotish, which is India's form of the zodiac, is different than the traditional zodiac system that you may be familiar with. So yes. And that will also impact your prakriti. So your organic, original constitution will also be impacted based on your time and place and year of birth. So the studies never stop. Next, you'll have to layer on Vedic astrology if you want to like go even deeper into this. So yes, thank you for that question. All right, I'm just going to do a quick scan here, make sure we don't have any other hands up that I missed. I don't see any. All right. I'm going to go. Actually, you know what I want to do, because I don't want to rut. Everyone's had such good questions about the Dinacharya and the Ritucharya, the daily and the seasonal routines, that I don't want to rush through it. So I think what I'd like to do is ask each of you to take out your journals or your notebooks. I'm going to give you an assignment here. And I'd like you to write down, to the best of your ability, what your daily routine looks like. So a lot of the vatas are probably like, routine? What? I don't have a routine. Every day is different and new. And that's okay. So write down as to the extent that you're able, any sort of consistent things that happen in your day. And if you're able to, also include things like what time, like, you know, wake up at 6 a.m. Yep, that happens like pretty consistently every day. Eat breakfast at, you know, maybe between 8 and 10, like somewhere in there, more or less. Most days I do that. Like write if you can, the times of the day and your daily routine. I'm gonna give you a couple minutes to take some notes, and then we're gonna go into some breakout rooms. Actually, Nicole, if you want, you can prepare the breakout rooms, but I think we're going to cover one thing quickly before. So let's do groups of 3 for the breakout rooms. And then there'll be a couple, the folks that are doing it at home with more than one person, those will be groups of 4. Thank you. Okay, I got my recording back on. So let's look at just the first slide, and then we'll go a little deeper in this afternoon. A minute. Okay, here we go. Yes, slide up. Yep, okay. So Dinacharya is referred to as the daily routine or the daily regimen. And there's a clock, a handy dandy little clock. And again, I can send you these slides. So if you feel like it's a lot to write down right now, don't stress about it. Just take a look. And what I want you to observe is I want you to kind of overlay your daily routine and look at the times of the day that are dedicated to each dosha. So they repeat. Each dosha has 2 moments to shine throughout the day. So we have Vata dosha from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. Then we move into Kapha dosha from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pitta from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. right in the middle of the day. Vata, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. So now we come back around the clock. It goes back to Vata in the afternoon to late afternoon. Kapha in the evening time, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then Pitta from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And then it starts all over again. Okay, so it goes around in a 24-hour cycle. So very quickly, just look at your list, knowing how much you really do know quite a bit now about the doshas and the gunas and the elements. And think about, as you look at each dosha, the elements that comprise that dosha, the gunas that dominate that dosha, and then look at the activities that you have listed at different times of the day on your own personal daily routine. And just think to yourself if those activities seem like activities that would balance the gunas of each dosha. And so what we're going to do I'll leave this slide up for like one more minute while I'm explaining. What we're gonna do for the last couple minutes, we might run over by just like 2 minutes, I'm sorry, but I wanted to at least get to this first part, is we're gonna go into those breakout groups, and I would like you to have a conversation about what you've observed. So I want this to be a little bit of an intuitive practice of starting to layer on this new knowledge and go like, oh, wow, I saw that I do my workout every day at 11 a.m. My high intensity cardio circuit, whatever it may be, at 11 a.m. And now I see that that's the pitta time of day. So maybe I don't need to layer on more gunas of being sweaty, slimy, oily, hot when I'm in the pitta time of day. So things like that. I want you kind of just exploring that and discussing that together as a group and what you observe from your own routine. And then we're going to actually break down and see what Ayurveda says are the ideal routines to have in each of these periods of time. So I think I need to stop my share for you to put them in the breakouts. Let's go ahead and go to the breakout rooms, and we'll see you back in 10 minutes. And then Nicole, if you could send a broadcast to whichever group that Kate Ash is in, or if you could slip someone over to that group. She had to just pop out a couple minutes early, so she's actually not on. Or, if it's all like 3 or 2, if it doesn't seem like any of the rooms are overcrowded.
Sorry, I forgot I was muted. Heads up, you're recording still.
Oh. All right. Hello, welcome back. Welcome back in.
Yeah, hi. I was in a breakout with Chloe, and I guess her Wi-Fi got.
Oh wait, she's here though.
Yeah, I don't know. We were mid conversation. Sorry, Chloe.
Hi.
Hey. Maybe we can catch up this afternoon.
Oh yeah, sorry, I haven't seen your face before, but yes.
Yeah, what up?
My internet is almost as bad as Puerto Viejo's, so.
That's what I texted Nicole, and that's what she told me. She's like, it's probably her Wi-Fi, and I just got back to Wi-Fi, so.
Yeah, it's not, and there's a storm outside, so.
Oh, bummer. I was wanted to hear from you.
Well, that's a good excuse for us to check in another time then.
Yeah, let's do that.
What time of the day, Avani, is the best time to talk about the times of the day?
You will have the answer to that question this afternoon. Excellent. We are going to go into that. So thank you all so much. Everything that you just went over and explored in your groups, you can kind of just note anything down that has bubbled up for questions or just things that you thought were interesting. I'm so excited to hear about it. We are going to go a lot deeper into the daily routines and then the annual routine. And then we're going to switch gears and go back to yoga. And we're going to talk a little bit more about yoga to wrap up our time together. Remember, in the afternoon, just in case you are far from your practice space or anything like that, that we will be doing Abhyanga just before we close for the weekend. So that's the oil massage. That will be our afternoon practice today. So we're going to leave you all nice and oiled up and cozy and comfy and relaxed, moving out of your weekend and into your week ahead. So have those supplies ready and accessible for you. We will have a half an hour break before we go into that, but in case it's not right nearby or handy, get that stuff during the lunch break. All right. Thank you all so much for your intentionality, your mindfulness, your amazing questions and comments. And we'll see you all back at 2 p.m.